the next level, yeah. 절대적으로를 지켜 내 손을 놓지 마라. 결속은 나의 무기. 광야로 걸어가 알아 내 homeground. 위협에 맞서서 제껴라 제껴라 제껴라. 상상도 못한 blackout. 유혹은 깊어지네. Too hot, too hot. 막 잡은 손을 놓자. 난 절대 포기 못해. I'm on the next level. 저 너머의 문을 열어. Next level. 널 결국엔 내가 부셔. Next level. 코스모에 탈 때까지 next level. 지겨라 지겨라 지겨라.
Mr. President, I have the great honor to introduce a recorded statement by His Excellency Mr. Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan.
The whole world community should think, what is the way ahead? There are two paths we can take. If we neglect Afghanistan right now, according to the UN, half the people of Afghanistan are already vulnerable. And by next year, almost 90% of people in Afghanistan will go below the poverty line. There's a huge humanitarian crisis looming ahead. And this will have serious repercussions, not just for the neighbors of Afghanistan, but it will have repercussions everywhere if a destabilized, a chaotic Afghanistan again becomes a safe haven for international terrorists. The reason why the US came to Afghanistan in the first place. So therefore, there is only one way to go. We must strengthen this current government, stabilize it, for the sake of the people of Afghanistan. What have the Taliban promised? They will respect human rights. They will have an inclusive government. They will not allow this soil to be used by terrorists. And they have given amnesty. Now, if the world community incentivizes them, encourages them to walk this talk, it will be a win-win situation for everyone. Because these are the four things that in Doha, when the US was talking to the Taliban, these were the conditions the dialogue was all about. So if the world can incentivize them to go this direction, then after all, this 20-year of presence of coalition presidents in Afghanistan would not be wasted, because Afghan soil would not be used for international terrorism.
My delegation is exercising its right of reply in response to the statement made by the Indian representative. Jammu and Kashmir neither is a so-called integral part of India, nor is it India's internal matter. India remains in occupation of an internationally recognized disputed territory whose final disposition needs to be decided in accordance with the democratic principle of a free and impartial plebiscite under the United Nations auspices as provided for under numerous resolutions of the Security Council. In order to divert attention from ever-increasing international condemnation of India's widespread and escalating human rights abuses in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, India continues to level baseless allegations and rely on outright lie and obfuscation.
Today's meeting of the Council is timely in view of the significant developments in Somalia over the last several weeks and even days. Growing political tensions threaten Somalia's state-building progress and even security, unless they are resolved through dialogue and compromise in the interest of the country. Unfortunately, instead, we are seeing increased brinkmanship, pressure tactics, and tests of strength that can only heighten risks. The political standoff among key Somali leaders has blocked implementation of the electoral model agreed by the federal government of Somalia president and federal member state leaders on 17 September 2020. This model was formally endorsed by both houses of parliament and supported by all other major political actors, but implementation is in dispute. I will return to this point. Tensions over electoral implementation have now been compounded by questions raised by some political figures over the legitimacy of the president's mandate following expiring of his constitutional term on 8 February. The government cites an October parliamentary resolution permitting the president to remain, but this is contested by others.
Listen up, people. I know a thing or two about extinction. And let me tell you, and you'd kind of think this would be obvious, going extinct is a bad thing. And driving yourselves extinct? In 70 million years, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. At least we had an asteroid. What's your excuse? You're headed for a climate disaster, and yet every year governments spend hundreds of billions of public funds on fossil fuel subsidies. Imagine if we had spent hundreds of billions per year subsidizing giant meteors. That's what you're doing right now.
Right in this hall 6 years ago, the UN agreed to adopt the Sustainable Development Goals, and 2 years ago, it proclaimed the Decade of Action until 2030. Humanity's strides towards an inclusive future were held back by COVID-19. Yet, ironically, it was the very pandemic that brought home the desperate need for SDGs.
Everyone agrees that climate change is an important problem, but talking about what the best solution might be, that's not easy. It's a topic that's tough to make conclusions about. Yes, it is a tough discussion, but I learned while preparing for today that there are many young people who have an interest in environmental issues and choose it as their field of study. The future is unexplored territory, and that's where we, more than anyone, will spend our time. So these young people were searching for the answers to the question of how we must live that future. So I hope we don't just consider the future as grim darkness. We have people who are concerned for the world and searching for the answers.
우리 미래 세대에게 너무나 중요하기 때문입니다. 어떤 면에서는 미래는 미래 세대의 것이라고 말할 수 있습니다. 오늘 우리가 지속가능 목표에 실패한다면 앞으로 미래 세대들이 그 고통을 전적으로 짊어져야 할 것입니다. 그런 면에서 미래 세대들이 지속가능 발전 목표 이 달성을 위해서 보다 많이 목소리를 내고 보다 많이 참여할 필요가 있다고 생각합니다. 우리 BTS는 최고의 아티스트로 그 코로나 시대에 고통받는 이 세계의 젊은이들에게 공감과 희망의 메시지를 전해 주었습니다. 많은 사랑을 받고 있지만 그 받은 사랑을 선한 영향력으로 이렇게 돌려드린다는 데 특별한 점이 있다고 생각합니다. 저는 BTS가 미래 세대, 젊은 세대들의 목소리를 대변하면서 그들이 보다 활발하게 참여할 수 있도록 이끌어내는 또 결집해내는 그런 역할을 할 수 있다고 기대하고 오늘 대통령 특별 사절로 임명하고 동행하게 된 것입니다. BTS의 역할에 대한 기대가 큽니다. 보다 많은 젊은이들이 지속가능 발전 목표에 참여하기를 바랍니다.
Excellencies, guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Our world is challenged like never before, from climate change to conflicts to COVID-19, which is putting the Sustainable Development Goals further out of reach. It would be easy to lose hope, but we are not hopeless or helpless. We have a path to recovery if we choose to take it. That's what this SDG moment is all about.
Mr. President, we exercise our right of reply to one more attempt by the leader of Pakistan to tarnish the image of this August forum by bringing in matters internal to my country and going so far as to spew falsehoods on the world stage. While such statements deserve our collective contempt and sympathy for the mindset of the person who utters falsehood repeatedly, I am taking the floor to set the record straight. Regrettably, this is not the first time the leader of Pakistan has misused platforms provided by the UN to propagate false and malicious propaganda against my country, and seeking in vain to divert the world's attention from the sad state of his country, where terrorists enjoy free pass while the lives of ordinary people, especially those belonging to the minority communities, are turned upside down.